7 wins, 7 losses. 50-50. That is the cold, brutal arithmetic of Emma Raducanu's 2026 season through May, and I want you to hold that number in your head for the next 20 minutes, because by the time we're done here, you're going to understand exactly why that record is simultaneously the most misleading and the most telling statistic on the entire WTA Tour right now. Here's what I was looking at this morning. Raducanu hasn't struck a single ball in professional competition since Indian Wells. That was 2 months ago. She beat Anastasia Zakharova in straight sets, clean, controlled, some genuinely beautiful ball striking on that desert hard court, and then lost to Amanda Anisimova in a match where you could physically see the energy draining out of her by the third set. And then silence, illness, withdrawal. The Italian Open disappears from her schedule. The clay season, the most brutal physical grind on the tour, starts without her. She is a ghost on red dirt, and now she walks into Strasbourg. I was looking at the tape from that 2025 Strasbourg wildcard run, and here's the thing that actually jumped out at me. When Raducanu defeated Daria Kasatkina in round one last year, it wasn't luck. Kasatkina was the sixth seed, a clay court specialist, a player who had spent years building her high looping topspin game specifically for this surface, and Raducanu dismantled her. She was reading the kick serve delivery early, stepping inside the baseline on her backhand return before Kasatkina could pull her wide, and neutralizing the top spin RPM advantage that normally suffocates flat hitters on this surface. That's not a fluke performance. That is court intelligence operating at a genuinely elite level. So the question has never been whether Emma Raducanu is talented enough. If you've spent any time watching her ball striking mechanics, that debate is closed. The question, the only question that has stalked every single press conference, every comeback narrative, every breathless Sky Sports segment for the past 4 years, is whether her body will cooperate long enough for the talent to actually breathe. Now, here's the bit that actually bothers me about the way this Strasbourg draw is being discussed. Everyone is focusing on Madison Keys withdrawing with a thigh injury as this uncomplicated gift from the tennis gods. And yes, structurally, it is a break. Keys is the reigning 2025 Australian Open champion, a player with a serve that generates some of the highest first serve points won percentages on the women's tour, and a forehand that she can hit inside out at angles that genuinely trouble even top 10 movers. Removing her from Raducanu's potential round two path is significant. Zhang Shuai, currently sitting outside the top 50, is a categorically different challenge. But here's what I'd push back on. Treating this as a clear runway to a deep run misses the actual problem. Raducanu's clay season record is paper thin. She has zero competitive clay matches in 2026. Zero. She hasn't felt the drag of red dirt under her shoes in a competitive context for months, and clay is uniquely unforgiving in that regard because it doesn't let you cheat. On hard courts, raw ball striking pace can compensate for footwork deficiencies, for a split second hesitation on the split step, for timing that's slightly off its peak calibration. Clay strips all of that away. The surface demands patience, physical stamina, and a baseline aggression that has to be constructed point by point rather than seized in a flash of winners. If Raducanu's match sharpness is even slightly behind, Clay will expose it immediately. I was looking at her movement patterns in the Indian Wells loss to Anisimova, specifically around the middle of the second set, and there was a telling sequence where Raducanu was getting pulled out wide on her forehand side, and instead of loading up and ripping the inside out return to reestablish the rally, she was punching it back defensively, staying on the baseline rather than taking the court. That's a player managing something. Whether that was physical caution because of the illness that followed, or whether it was a confidence issue at that specific breakpoint pressure moment, I can't say with certainty. But that defensive baseline posture on balls she would normally attack is something to track in Strasbourg. The Diane Parry first round match is the real test. Not because Parry is a top shelf opponent, she's not, but because of what this match represents physically for Raducanu. Parry is a French wildcard specialist. She knows Strasbourg, she's comfortable on this exact surface, and she will make Raducanu work. Proper clay court work. Long rally exchanges, high looping cross court forehands, grinding baseline patterns that force Raducanu to slide and reset, slide and reset, slide and reset. If Raducanu wins that first match and her movement looks fluid, if she's tracking wide balls and recovering to the center tee with her usual athletic grace, that is your signal that the body is actually right. That is when you can start believing the Roland Garros story. Now, here's what nobody is talking about, and it is genuinely the most interesting subplot in Raducanu's Strasbourg campaign. Andrew Richardson is back, her US Open winning coach. The man who was in her corner in 2021 when Emma Raducanu, ranked 150th in the world on a wild card, walked through the entire United States Open draw without dropping a single set. Not a set, across 10 matches. I want you to actually think about what that required technically. It required a first serve that was consistently landing at 65-70% in high leverage moments. It required a return game calibrated so precisely that Raducanu was breaking serves from Belinda Bencic, from Maria Sakkari, from Belinda Bencic again in the final, using a read and react forehand return that she was hitting inside the baseline. And it required a coach who understood exactly how to manage the physical and tactical load across 2 weeks of Grand Slam tennis. Richardson knows her game at a molecular level. He knows which tactical adjustments she responds to under pressure, he knows her physical limits, and crucially, he knows how to keep her believing in herself when the match goes sideways. That relationship has a proven tournament winning blueprint attached to it. The coaching carousel that followed the US Open, the experiments, the personality clashes, the mid tournament changes, that is over. And the psychological clarity that comes from coaching stability cannot be overstated. I've spoken to analysts who work inside the WTA setup, and the consensus is that Raducanu's game has never been the problem. The chaos around her game has been the problem. Richardson removes a massive portion of that chaos. The draw beyond Parry and Zhang Shuai has some genuine complexity that I want to map out, because people are already treating this as an automatic semifinal run, and that's not how this works. Iva Jovic at the third round is a genuinely dangerous opponent on clay, powerful baseline aggression, unafraid to hit through the court, and young enough that the pressure of playing Raducanu's profile won't intimidate her. Look at how Jovic was striking her inside out forehand in the Rome Challenger matches earlier this season. She has legitimate topspin RPM on that wing, and she'll test Raducanu's backhand cross court defense consistently. That's a match where Raducanu's breakpoint conversion rate will matter enormously. She cannot let Jovic hold cheaply. The same half of the draw also houses Ekaterina Alexandrova and Emma Navarro, which tells you this isn't a gimme bracket at all. Navarro, in particular, has been one of the most quietly impressive clay court movers on the WTA Tour this season. Her court coverage is exceptional, her unforced error count on red dirt is remarkably low for a player of her baseline aggression, and she has the patience to construct points from behind the baseline until the opening appears. A potential Raducanu versus Navarro match in the later rounds would be a genuinely absorbing tactical battle between two players with fundamentally different approaches to clay court tennis. And then there is Roland Garros looming 1 week away, and the seeding situation that is quietly one of the more frustrating storylines in Raducanu's 2026 season. World number 37. She needs 5 withdrawals from the top 32 to earn a seed. 5. The difference between being seeded and unseeded at Roland Garros is not cosmetic. It is the difference between a potentially navigable draw and walking into a first or second round against a top 20 opponent who has been playing clay for 6 weeks. An unseeded Raducanu is one unlucky draw away from facing the tournament's best clay players before she's had a chance to find her rhythm. This is why Strasbourg is not just a warm up. It is not a shakedown hit. It is the most important 14 days in Emma Raducanu's 2026 season. Because what she builds here, physically, technically, mentally, is the foundation she carries into Paris. If she wins 2 or 3 matches, if her sliding movement looks sharp and her kick serve return is functioning, if she's converting break points rather than letting opponents off the hook, she arrives at Roland Garros with momentum. And the Raducanu with momentum is a different animal entirely. Here's my honest prediction, and I'll stand by this. Raducanu reaches the Strasbourg quarterfinals. She beats Parry in a match that goes at least 2 tight sets. The first one will tell us everything about her physical state, and then gets past Zhang Shuai with something to spare. The quarterfinal against Jovic or whoever emerges from that section of the draw will be where her clay form either announces itself or exposes its gaps. At Roland Garros, I think she reaches the third round minimum. If the body holds, and that is always the conditional with Emma Raducanu, I think a fourth round run is absolutely within reach. And at that point, you're one big upset away from a quarterfinal at a Grand Slam. The coaching stability, the lowered draw difficulty in the early rounds, the proven Strasbourg track record, these are not small factors. They are the architecture of a comeback. And I genuinely believe that the version of Emma Raducanu that walked onto Louis Armstrong Stadium in September 2021 and refused to blink, that player still exists. Richardson has seen her. The question is whether Strasbourg gives her enough time to find her again. The rest of the tour should be paying attention. Quietly, carefully, and with the appropriate level of concern,